Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om. 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 Welcome everybody to this evening's Living Wisely, Living Well discussion. My name's Swami Jaya, and I'll be your host this evening. And the order for this evening will be, I'd like to begin with a prayer. We'll play a chant, and then we'll meditate for maybe 1 minute, just a short time. And then we'll proceed with our reading of the week and discourse until the conclusion. So let's begin. Let's begin with a prayer, centering ourselves and drawing the divine presence to us. O Infinite Spirit, beloved Masters, Great Guru Paramhansa Yogananda, we bow to you all. Fill us with thy bliss. May we feel thee, thy presence, thy eternal joy behind every thought, every action. We are thine, Lord. Receive us. Om Shanti Shanti. Now let's just chant this simple chant. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Fill my body, fill my spirit, fill me with the sound of Om. Let's now sit up straight. Let's inhale, take a deep breath, tense the body, and now throw the breath out. Focus your gaze upward to the point between the eyebrows. At that point, try to feel joy. Try to consciously be happy, feel happiness. The happiness, the joy that you feel has no cause outwardly. It's just your nature within. Looking up into the spiritual eye, feel that joy descending from the darkness of closed eyes, through the spiritual eye, into the body, driving away all sorrow, darkness, filling you. Joy, joy. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Today's reading from Living Wisely, Living Well. This is a good one. Actually, this is quite an important one. If anything or anyone distresses you, think how you'll probably feel a week, a month, a year later. If you can imagine yourself being happy and peaceful then, why waste all that time? Be happy and peaceful now. That's a very simple reading, but a very, very dynamic and powerful one. And actually, that reading, as I read it before the program began this evening, I was reading that and I realized that's a reading that comes from a story early in Swami's life, some years before, 40 plus years ago in Swami's life. It was early in my tenure of being associated with Swami Ananda, and I remember him telling that story, many decades ago. And actually, the story that he told had a very significant impact on my life. It was one of those stories that I took to heart and I kept recalling again and again. And as the years have passed, I've told the story many times, as Swami used to do in those days. And as the years passed, I eventually became a teacher of Acharya for the Ananda Sangha. And it's one of those stories, the principle behind which informed my understanding of what it means to practice yoga. And around this story, you could say my whole philosophical approach to the approach of yoga is based. And the story is a simple one, and you may have even heard it before yourself, as I've told it repeatedly over the years, is that Swami, in his years ago, I don't know, it was certainly 40, maybe 50 years ago, when he was a young man, younger, middle-aged man at that time, but in good health, he and some friends went on a vacation day up into the mountains to go skiing. And as he was driving, Swami Ji was, and he was driving up into the mountains, and as they pulled off to the road in a turnoff place, there in the mountains where it was snow on the road, his car skidded and it slid and collided, not violently, but significantly. It collided with a bus. So bus and car colliding, you know which one comes out in worse shape. Well, it was the car, and the bus was hardly even scratched, but the car was inoperable, and they had to park it on the side of the road there at the turnoff. And rather than canceling the trip, they simply got on the bus and took the bus to the bus driver, invited them on, and away they went to their destination, wherever it was to go skiing. And when they got on the bus, Swamiji took his seat, and there was a lady on the bus who had seen the whole incident out the window. And she said to him, Sir, you're the fellow who was driving the car there. And he says, yes, ma'am. And he says, I see you're getting on the bus, and you seem to be perfectly fine, and you seem to be happy, and it's as if nothing happened. Aren't you distressed? Aren't you upset of what's happened? Because Swami was in his self, he was with people and just talking casually, and he was on a ski trip having a good time. And Swamiji paused for a moment and he addressed this lady. He says, well, madam, I know that in 1 week, 2 weeks time from now, I'm going to be perfectly happy. My car will be fixed and I'm going to be perfectly happy. Why waste all that time and not be happy now? And I thought when I heard that story, it had that's a perfect answer. And it had, as I said, it had a very great impact on me because the question released some obvious, to me, answer of what am I doing in life? What do I want in life? And there was a couple of points, particularly in that answer, that I'd like to share with you, but there are many ways that we could address this. The first was that Swami obviously said, why waste all that time? Why not be happy now? And as I thought about it, I thought, exactly. That's exactly what all of us want to do. And that is what I want. And now remember, I was a young man at that time, rather new to these teachings. And I had come on to this path of yoga for all sorts of reasons. But it wasn't clear in my mind what I was seeking, why I was doing it. I knew I was after something. And I wanted to be happy. And he encapsulated it so clearly. And why not be happy now? And I thought, yes, that's what I want. And years later, there's a story that's often told, and it's sometimes even by other acharyas. There was an incident that happened in my life that I was in the city of Pune, India, and I was giving a discourse on yoga. And some college students there after the class in the question and answer session challenged me, and one of them was, egged on by his fellow students, stood up, and I had been practicing these teachings now for 40 years by that time, and he stood up and he says, sir, you've been practicing these so long, I would like you to demonstrate your powers to us. And of course, and everybody smiled. And of course, when we think of powers and we think of yoga, we think of the siddhis and we think of those things that Patanjali describes in his Yoga Sutras and the things that sometimes we read about yogis. And I recognize that in the student's question, behind it, this is what many people seek in yoga. They seek in yoga the ability to increase their powers. Now, that can be a good thing, and it can probably be not a good thing also, depending upon what you identify as those powers to be. And so these young fellows asked me that question, and I just smiled, and perhaps they were wanting me to levitate or something. And I just smiled and said, no, I'm sorry, I don't have any powers. But after pausing a little bit, and I hadn't thought about it, but I paused and I said, well, that's in my mind. I thought, well, that's actually not totally true. And then I said, but thinking about it, there is actually one power I have a little bit of. I can choose to be happy. And then I kind of challenged him, can you do that? And he laughed at that time, and of course the whole audience laughed, and it was a nice moment. But I was joking on one level, but I was also very serious on another level, because it went back to that story. And I remembered it very clearly at that time when I was talking to those young men, that the question of was, in a sense, posed by Swami, why not be happy now? And to me, this is what yoga has been. Yoga is the science of learning to, in this moment, be happy. Now, what we're really probably looking for, and what I've learned over the years, is we're looking for something more than just simply being happy. We're looking for joy. We're actually, in a yogic sense, you'd say we're looking for bliss. Bliss is because bliss is our nature. This is our true nature, and what we're doing is trying to recall that true nature of bliss that expresses itself. But we translate it down into an everyday experience of happiness. But happiness is, you might say, defined as that bliss that all of us are seeking, but it's defined as that bliss outside of ourselves. So we seek happiness out in the world around us, in circumstances, things go well. And I had realized many, many years ago when Swami had told that story that yes, that's what I'm looking for. That's what everybody's looking for. That's what Paramahansa Yogananda defined as a universal that all people are looking for bliss, or certainly at least trying to avoid sorrow. And they're looking for that, but in the wrong places usually. And we seek it out in the world around us. And I looked at myself those many years ago, and I thought, yes, that's what I want. And I began to try to find it. And I says, I'm going to be happy right now. And I would go for a little bit of time, sometimes maybe a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it might be. And then I'd forget, and something would happen, intrude in my life. And I'd get sidetracked this way or that way, and I'd forget that's what I was looking for. And something would happen, I'd get upset or disturbed or thrown off base, and then I'd come back to it. And I'd say, oh no, I've lost it. And it's so very elusive. Now think for yourself. Isn't it so? And if you want to substitute some other aspect for bliss, you could say peace, calmness, whatever it is that you're trying to find in life, and you say, that's what I want. Why can't I have it right now? And you've heard this story or this phrase that people use in life. They say, live in the moment. And yes, I want to live in the moment. And if I'm living in the moment, I have that constant thought, I can do it. But that moment passes, and pretty soon I'm off elsewhere. I remember I had a friend in those early days, and he also was somewhat motivated like I in this direction. And he said, I want you to do me a favor. Every time you see me, ask me, are you awake? And I said, okay, I will. And so the days would go by, and maybe we did this for a week, and whenever I'd see him, I'd say, are you awake? And he said, yes, I'm awake. Because of course, he meant awake more than just simply not sleeping. He meant, am I awake? Am I aware right now? And if I'm aware right now, then I can choose to be happy, I can be sad, or I can be peaceful, whatever it is. And I can be conscious of the moment, living in the moment, rather than elsewhere. That elsewhere tends to be in daydreams or memories, or we're obsessed with some situation or another. We're always living not in the moment, but perhaps in the future, making our plans, or perhaps in the past with regrets or memories of some sort. And so the first step, and this fellow expressed it, was to be awake in the moment. And then if you're awake in the moment, you can be happy now. So those two, I mentioned there are 2 points that Swami had awakened within me with this story of why waste time? Why not be happy right now? That I said, yes, that's what I want. And the first one is to learn to choose to be happy. I'm going to be happy now. This is what I want. This is what all people want. Why not choose it? And that's the second aspect. What we want is happiness or joy or bliss, if we say it like that. But we have to choose it. It's not something that simply comes on us from outside of ourselves. I'll put myself in a state and bliss will wash down on me from some mystic source. Or you might say, as the artist says, if I put myself in a certain state, the muse will smile upon me and flood me with inspiration from outside of myself. No, these things are inside of ourselves, and we have to be able to summon them up. And that depends upon choosing that. Having the power to make a choice. And when I came to that understanding, it began to reveal to me that this is one of the powers that we gain when we practice yoga, when we meditate. And why we meditate is to learn to live our lives in a conscious state of being able to make choices in life. As opposed to what often happens, or is very normal for people, is to respond or react to whatever comes to us from outside of ourselves, circumstances. So consequently, if a person wants to be happy, they look to arrange their life in such a way is to create happy circumstances that they believe will create happiness for them. The new car, the new carpet in the house, the fine meal, a nice spouse, wife, happy children, all of a good career, all of those things that if we arrange our situation in a certain way, then I'll be happy. Well, now of course we find that that does have some effect. But what happens? The happiness is there and it begins to slip away. And as soon as you have it, most people don't even take time to enjoy it because they're off thinking about the next thing. Well, if I've got some happiness now, but it's going to go away. And they begin to, they're thinking of the future of what can I do to sustain this happiness? And they don't even take the time to enjoy the happiness that they've gained already. And they're looking for something new. And we know this life is not arranged to be able to experience that sort of happiness constantly. Eventually we have outward circumstances of making our happiness. Inevitably, this world of relativity, those circumstances will change. Everything changes. And oh no, I can't. I'm going to hold on. I'm going to hold on to that change. And we resist it. And pretty soon in that resistance to change, there's tension, there's fear. What if this happens? What if that happens? And eventually there's ups and there's downs, and there's ups and there's downs. And our only response is to think, if I can only recapture that I had just a little while ago. And so consequently, we're always thinking, well, maybe if this in the future, that in the future. Regrets for the past. And this is how we approach happiness. And we forget that, or perhaps we don't even realize that what we need to do is be able to choose that happiness right now. I will be joyful. I will choose to be joyful. And this is the fulfillment of what Krishna advises Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. O Arjuna, be thou a yogi. Is to be able to gain that power to be a yogi. And a yogi is one who has that power to be blissful at all times. But that bliss doesn't come from outside. It comes from inside. It means choosing it and summoning that bliss up. And bliss is something we do not create, you see. It's not creating something within ourselves. It's opening ourselves and realizing it. And the first step toward that is learning to be able to choose that. And choice, at its very essence, depends upon consciousness. I am consciously able to use my little bit or bigger amount of will to make that choice. Every action is a choice to some degree. Krishna says there's no such thing as inaction. You can never be inactive. Even taking a breath, to some degree, there's an aspect of choice, willpower in there. There's a certain aspect of will, and this is why Paramahansa Yogananda begins his discussion of sharing techniques with us in this path of Kriya Yoga. What do we begin with? We begin with learning the energization exercises. And this is not about physical fitness. That's a side benefit. This is about learning to choose, to use your will. The greater the will, the greater the flow of energy. And we use our will to do that. But in order to use that will, we have to be conscious. So conscious will. And we use that. We make that choice in little things. We choose to live consciously. And so, going back to that story of my friend, are you awake? Yes, I'm awake. Or are you living in a dream? Are you living in memories? Are you living in the past? Are you living in your reactive moments to emotional feeling? And this is what Arjuna, or in the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna advises, or Arjuna and everything, is be thou a yogi. And Patanjali defines, what does it mean to be a yogi? Neutralize the waves of action and reaction, the vrittis of emotional reaction to life outside of ourselves. And when we're doing that, we lose control of ourselves because we've now made ourselves a slave to what's going on outside of ourselves. When I came to that understanding through that simple story of Swami's, yes, that's it. I can choose to be happy right now. And when I hold that in my mind, moment to moment, day to day, whatever happens outside of myself, it's my responsibility to make that choice of how I respond to whatever happens. So if I run into a bus, of course these things are, I'm probably not yet a perfect yogi not to notice, oh my gosh, now I got to take the car to the repairman, and all the time it's going to take to do that. But yet, if you look, even in those moments of distress in your life, as you become more aware, you'll notice that underneath those ripples, there is a deep ocean of stillness underneath. And that's where we want to base our consciousness. Our consciousness wants to be centered in the deep ocean of calmness, peace, bliss, God's presence, infinity, rather than on the surface of the ripples of the waves that are constantly going to be there, blown by the influence of time and relativity, stirring up. Om blows upon the waters and ripples the surface. But underneath, there's that stillness. And so, are we going to be based, our consciousness, on the deep ocean? Or is it going to be based upon the ripples on the surface? Now, basing your consciousness in the deep ocean of stillness doesn't mean that those ripples on the surface, circumstances are still working in this world, and it doesn't mean that you can ignore them, because as long as we are in this world, you could say that which is Caesar's, give back to Caesar. You have to do your duty in life. You have past karma dictating that. You have circumstances calling for you to act in a certain way, so you don't become calm and peaceful by withdrawing your outward actions from doing whatever your duty is in life. We must do whatever our duty is, and we must do it responsibly. We must do it with willpower. We must do it with intelligence. We must act. But that's the surface. But our consciousness is always underneath, centered in bliss. And this is what every yogi, this is what every great spiritual master comes throughout the ages to remind us of, that we are that. We're not those ripples on the surface. We're that calm, centered consciousness behind the ripples. And if we can learn to center ourselves in that consciousness, no matter what happens outwardly, you're going to be okay. You can be happy all the times, but if you must remember, we must learn to choose it. It's a conscious choice. And eventually, as we learn to choose that, we begin to realize that we can merge ourselves into that superconscious presence of bliss that is with us at all times. And so take this to heart. This is what yoga is about. It's not about Irda, Pingala, Shushumna. It's about those things too. But so many people, they come onto the yoga and they think it's something exotic, something foreign to them, something far away, couched in mystical language. It's not. It's about being happy now. But then remember, being joyful now. Even further, let's say, being blissful now. And that bliss is in you. It's in us already. It's not something that we have to find outside of ourselves. It's just to uncover it, awaken it, and then we can live. Make the choice. I'm going to live in that bliss right now, in all moments. Whatever happens outside of myself, that's going to become my day-to-day, moment-to-moment reality. Much joy to you.